The Unyielding Stone, The Mystery of the Coral Castle. Introduction: The Monument of a Broken Heart. Before we begin our journey into the sweltering heat of the Florida Everglades and the silent stone corridors of one of the world's most baffling architectural feats, let us first speak of the book that inspired this exploration. The Unyielding Stone is more than just a historical record. It is a deep-dive investigation into the life, the love, and the impossible engineering of Edward Leedskalnin. This book chronicles the 28 years Ed spent in solitary labor, quarrying, carving, and moving over 1,100 tons of coral rock, a feat accomplished by a man who stood only 5 feet tall and weighed barely 100 pounds. Through interviews with historians, analysis of Ed's own cryptic pamphlets on magnetism, and the eyewitness accounts of neighbors who claim to see stones floating like balloons, this text seeks to answer the question that has stumped engineers for a century: how did he do it? In the pages of this audio journey, we will walk through the gate that turns with the touch of a finger, peer through a telescope made of solid rock, and sit at a table shaped like a heart, all while unraveling the tragedy of a sweet 16 who never came home. Chapter 1: The Architect of Heartbreak. Who was Edward Leedskalnin? The story of Coral Castle does not begin in Florida. It begins thousands of miles away, in the cold Baltic winds of Latvia in the late 19th century. Edward Leedskalnin was born in 1887 into a family of stonemasons. From a young age, he was surrounded by the language of the chisel and the hammer, learning how to listen to the grain of the rock and understand the physics of weight and balance. But Ed was a small man, frail and prone to illness, with a mind that wandered far beyond the stone yards. At the age of 26, he met the woman who would change the trajectory of his life forever, Agnes Skufsvik. He was 26, she was 16. In his mind, she was the sweet 16, the embodiment of innocence and perfection. They were engaged to be married, but just one day before the ceremony, Agnes called it off. The reasons given vary. Some say she thought he was too old, others say he was too poor. Regardless, she left him at the altar, and Ed's heart was not just broken, it was shattered into 1,000 pieces. Devastated and unable to face his community, Ed fled Latvia. He traveled to Western Europe, then to Canada, and eventually down into the United States. He worked in logging camps in the Pacific Northwest, pushing his small body to the limit, before a bout of tuberculosis forced him to seek a warmer, drier climate. He followed the sun all the way to the tip of Florida, arriving in Florida City in the early 1920s. It was here, in the land of swamp and sun, that Ed began his life's work. He bought a small plot of land and, working only at night under the light of a single lantern, began to quarry the olite limestone that sat just beneath the surface of the soil. He didn't build a house, he built a shrine. Every stone he cut, every obelisk he raised, was for Agnes. He truly believed that if he built a castle grand enough, a home beautiful enough, she would hear about it across the ocean and finally come to him. In this chapter, we look at the psychological landscape of a man who never once gave up on a ghost. We explore the tragic romanticism of a 5-foot giant and the origins of the Sweet 16 legend that would eventually inspire everything from local folklore to Billy Idol's rock anthems. Ed wasn't just building a castle, he was building a physical manifestation of his longing. Chapter 2: The Great Migration, Moving the Impossible. For nearly 15 years, Ed worked in Florida City, creating the first iteration of what he called Rock Gate Park. But in 1936, something changed. Rumors began to circulate that a new subdivision was being built nearby, and Ed, a man who guarded his privacy with a fierce intensity, decided he had to move. But how does a 100-pound man move a castle? He bought 10 acres of land 10 miles north in Homestead, Florida. He hired a friend with a tractor and a trailer to help with the transport, but with one strict condition: the driver was never allowed to see Ed load or unload the trailer. Ed would have the massive coral blocks ready at the side of the road, and when the driver arrived the next morning, the trailer would be miraculously loaded with stones weighing up to 30 tons. When they arrived at the new site in Homestead, the driver would go for a coffee, and by the time he returned, the trailer would be empty and the stones would be precisely placed. This great migration took 3 years. During this time, Ed moved every single piece of his creation, including the massive perimeter walls and the delicate stone furniture. It is during this period that the legends of Ed's secret powers truly took root. People in Florida City reported seeing lights in the woods at night and hearing Ed singing to the stones. A few local teenagers claimed they saw him through the trees, standing over a massive block with his hands outstretched, and that the stone was hovering several inches off the ground like a balloon filled with helium. In this chapter, we analyze the logistics of this 3-year move.
We look at the sheer physical impossibility of a single man loading a 30-ton obelisk onto a trailer, using only leverage and pulleys, as Ed claimed. We investigate the tools he left behind: crude tripods made of old telephone poles, heavy chains, and a mysterious black box that sat atop his lifting rigs. Was it a simple counterweight system, or was it something more? We look at the perpetual motion holder and Ed's budding obsession with the magnetic forces of the Earth.
Chapter 3. A Tour of the Celestial Garden. The Features of Coral Castle. Once you step through the walls of Coral Castle, you realize you aren't in a fortress. You are in a stone-carved map of the universe. Ed was a self-taught astronomer, and his carvings reflect a deep, almost mystical connection to the stars. The most famous feature is the 9-ton gate. This massive block of coral is so perfectly balanced on an old Ford truck axle that for decades a child could push it open with a single finger. When it finally stopped swinging in the 1980s due to a rusted bearing, it took a team of 6 men and a 50-ton crane to remove the stone and repair the mechanism. They discovered that Ed had drilled a hole through the center of the 8-foot-tall stone with such precision that it was perfect to within a fraction of an inch, a feat modern drill bits struggle with in the porous, abrasive coral. Then there is the Polaris telescope. This 25-foot-tall stone structure is perfectly aligned with the North Star. If you look through the crosshairs at the top, you can track the celestial movements of the night sky, a testament to Ed's incredible mathematical precision. Throughout the garden, we see the Feast of Love table, a massive heart-shaped stone weighing 5,000 pounds, where Ed imagined he and Agnes would eat their wedding dinner. There are the crescent moons, the planetary sundial, accurate to within 2 minutes, and the stone rocking chairs, which, despite being made of solid rock, are perfectly balanced to rock back and forth with the weight of a person. In this chapter, we take a sensory tour of the castle. We describe the rough, white texture of the oleite, the way the Florida sun makes the stones glow, and the eerie stillness of the throne room. We explore the symbolism of the children's corner, where Ed carved stone beds and a cradle for the children he and Agnes would never have. This isn't just a garden, it is a meticulously planned life that never happened, frozen in stone. Chapter 4. The Physics of the Night. Pulleys, magnetism, or magic? If you asked Ed how he built the castle, his answer was always the same, delivered with a cryptic smile. It's not difficult if you know how. He claimed to have rediscovered the secrets of the pyramids and the ancient builders, but what did he actually mean? Ed wrote and published several pamphlets, most notably one titled Magnetic Current. In these writings, he argued that modern science was wrong about the nature of atoms. He didn't believe in protons or electrons. Instead, he believed that everything was made of individual north and south pole magnets that circulated in a double helix pattern. He believed that if you could harness these currents, you could neutralize gravity itself. He famously stated, "The Earth itself is a great big magnet." Many researchers believe that Ed chose the location of Coral Castle because it sits on a ley line, a point of concentrated electromagnetic energy on the Earth's grid. They suggest he wasn't lifting the stones so much as reversing their polarity, making them weightless in relation to the ground. Others, more skeptical, point to his background as a stonemason and logger. They argue that Ed was simply a master of the old ways, the use of levers, wedges, and complex pulley systems that have been forgotten in our age of internal combustion. They suggest that by using a block and tackle system and working slowly over 28 years, a single man could indeed move 1,100 tons of rock. In this chapter, we put both theories to the test. We talk to structural engineers who explain why the leverage theory still doesn't quite account for the lack of tool marks or the speed at which Ed worked. We also explore the occult side of the mystery, the black box that Ed claimed could generate power, and his interest in the harmonic frequencies of the stones. This is the heart of the enigma, the intersection of a master craftsman and a potential scientific revolutionary. Chapter 5. The Eternal Enigma, the Death and Legacy of Ed Leedskalnin. Edward Leedskalnin lived in the tower of his castle, a 2-story structure made of massive coral blocks. He lived simply without electricity or running water, surviving on crackers and sardines. He was a local celebrity, charging visitors 10 cents and later 25 cents for a tour of his rock gate park. He was polite but distant, a man who seemed to belong to another century entirely. In December 1951, Ed felt ill. He put a sign on his front gate that simply said, "Going to hospital." He took a bus to Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami. 3 days later, at the age of 64, he died in his sleep. The cause of death was kidney failure,
likely a long-term result of the tuberculosis he had suffered in his youth. He died as he had lived, alone. He never married. He never saw Agnes again. In fact, late in his life, someone tracked down Agnes in Latvia and told her about the magnificent castle a man had built for her in Florida. Her response was chillingly simple: "I don't want to hear about him." After his death, the castle was passed to a nephew and eventually sold to a family who preserved it as a museum. In 1984, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. Today, it remains a site of pilgrimage for scientists, tourists, and the heartbroken alike. In this final chapter, we reflect on the meaning of Coral Castle. Is it a monument to madness, or the greatest engineering feat of the 20th century? We look at the modern attempts to solve the castle using ground-penetrating radar and 3D modeling. We discuss why Ed's magnetic current theories are being revisited by alternative energy researchers today. But ultimately, we realize that the true power of Coral Castle isn't in its physics, it's in its story. It is a reminder that the human spirit, fueled by obsession and a desperate kind of love, can move the earth itself. Ed Leedskalnin left us with a puzzle made of stone, a legacy that refuses to be solved, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest secrets are the ones we carry to the grave. Outro. The stone remains. The sun sets over Homestead, casting long, geometric shadows across the coral garden. The Polaris telescope points toward a star that has guided sailors for millennia, and the 9-ton gate waits for a single finger to set it in motion. Edward Leedskalnin is gone, but his silent stone kingdom remains, a testament to the fact that one man, with enough time and a secret he refused to share, can build a world of his own. The mystery of Coral Castle is the mystery of the human mind. We may never know how Ed wove those stones, but we know why he did it. And perhaps that is the most important secret of all. If you like content like this, unraveling the world's most baffling mysteries, the stories of eccentric geniuses, and the hidden histories of the places we think we know, please like this content and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep digging through the archives and the soil to bring these incredible stories to life. What is your theory? Was Ed a master of ancient magnetism, or just the world's most patient stonemason? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and until next time, remember, the world is far more mysterious than it appears on the surface.